Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I'm excited to have Rebecca Laurie back in studio. How are you?
I'm doing great, Alex.
Yes.
So good to see you,
Good
as
to see
always.
You. Yes, and so for our listeners, in case you haven't chimed in for one of Rebecca's shows, she is the Director of Communications for the Department of Regulatory Agencies here in Colorado, or lovingly known as DORA, not
Yes,
the Explorer.
that's what they tell me.
Yes, so what are we talking about today? Who do you have with you today?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, just as a refresher, we do like to come on Connect and Collaborate to be able to talk about different regulatory topics and unveil some of the mysteries behind those topics. And we bring the experts from DORA here to have a discussion to explore the different areas that might be really kind of on the surface confusing for the average person.
Yes.
And we understand that. And so now's the time to get into some of those details and talk about it with the experts. So here today we have Vince Plymell. He's the communications manager with the Colorado Division of Insurance. Yes. And we have Tracy Garceau, who is the lead analyst of the Consumer Affairs section. She's with Property and Casualty as the insurance analyst for the Colorado Division of Insurance. So Tracy's role, as with all those in our consumer services area, is to enforce Colorado insurance statutes and regulations. She is actually the primary trainer of all new property and casualty staff, and she plays a mentoring role with all the consumer services employees. So we really rely on Tracy's expertise. She came to the Division of Insurance with over 20 years in the private sector in property and casualty insurance world. And under her tenure, regulatory complaints actually has reduced by 63%.
Wow, that's
and
huge.
Customer satisfaction measures have increased by 36%. So Tracy is an invaluable member of the Colorado Division of Insurance, and we're very happy to have her here. Welcome, Tracy.
Sounds like you found your calling there.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
And I'll throw in one other thing. I know that the amount of money that has been recovered for consumers has gone up as well in Tracy's time here. So
that's
and where are we, Vince?
I know that last year it was almost $10 million that was recovered for Colorado consumers from the Division of Insurance. So both property and casualty, life and health, all different areas.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll break that record this year.
I believe we are on track to break that record.
How can I get just $10 million? Is that a thing I can do?
We hope you
Maybe
never
not
need our
legally,
service,
Alex.
but if you do.
So what we're here to talk about today is property and casualty insurance in the commercial sector, so specifically for small businesses. And I thought we would kick off this discussion at a very basic level and ask you, Tracy, what is commercial insurance?
Well, I think the best way to say is what it's not. So we're all interested in understand insurance, or at least know about insurance, because a lot of us drive and we have to have auto insurance, or we may have a home and hopefully we have homeowner insurance, or for renting we'll have rental insurance, and that covers our personal property. Commercial insurance is for business entities, from small business all the way to large corporations. And there's a number of different types of insurance that I'm sure we'll get into for that service the commercial risks that businesses face every day.
So what types of businesses can you describe that would need to engage in having commercial insurance, specifically, small businesses?
Yeah, so if you are running a business, let's just start with an example of running a business out of your home. Colorado is wonderful. It's full of entrepreneurs who are starting up businesses. They're doing it in their garage or in their back room. So they have inventory, they have equipment and other materials that they use. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, would think that their homeowners, because it's in their home, would cover that. Unfortunately, it would not. So if they suffer a loss, a fire, water loss, a theft, anything that is used for a business would not be covered. So it starts as something as small as that, as small as somebody with a small business in their own home.
So just even a small home office.
Yes.
Just, really there for administrative purposes. But if there's a fire, that that's a whole different
Yeah,
category
the
altogether.
equipment, the inventory, the computers.
Yes.
So this is regardless of whether you have customers coming in and out of your home.
Right. You don't have to have a brick and mortar store.
Okay.
You know, we live in this world too where the businesses can include using the Uber or Lyft store, and that you have to have an endorsement, a commercial endorsement on your personal auto policy. So that you will be covered, because it's not covered if you're using it for business at all. So if you were using that example of somebody who has something in their garage and they're going to the post office, or they're going to another store or something to pick up supplies for their business, if they're using their personal auto for any business use, that would not be covered. So they really have to be careful, you know, and temper that excitement of starting a new business with stopping and being very serious and speaking to a reputable licensed agent possibly about the issues and the coverage that they need.
And so there's no just one commercial policy. This is going to be something that you need for your location, your home office, or something for your auto if you're using it for business needs as well. Different types of insurance.
Definitely. Not one size fits all at all. You know, you look around and see the variety of businesses that we interact with all the time, and that is the type of insurance as well. It might be an endorsement to your home insurance policy or your rental, or it could be a full-blown business operation policy, fondly known as a BOP.
Wow.
A Bob.
Yeah.
Easy enough to remember.
So, you know, with all the things that it takes to start up your own small business, I think about this analogy that a friend of mine told me when he was starting his talent representation business. And he said, you know, I've gotten my space, I've gotten my computers, the phones are turned on, you know, everything seems all ship-shape, and now I'm sitting down and I realize, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And the now what is, I mean, and part of that now what is, well, make sure that you're properly insured.
Absolutely.
Now that you're all set up and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is that going to be a matter of talking to an agent to tell you kind of what things you're likely to need?
Absolutely. And I often will tell, especially the small entrepreneurs, to start with the insurance company that they currently have a relationship with. So if they're comfortable with their own insurance company who insures their vehicle and their home, start with them and ask them if they have any business risk analysis people available to talk, and they can talk through what you're looking for and tell you whether an endorsement would be good enough or possibly what other business policies they have, and then what type of protection that you need.
Now let me ask you this, because I do obviously have an office space, but occasionally I do work from home, and the only thing I take home with me is the computer that I've gotten, and it is the work computer, it's not my computer. If something happens to my home, I do have renter's insurance. Is that laptop covered?
Well, it would be covered by who owns it, so it would be
Okay.
here. But say you have your
Okay.
own personal computer that you often use for work.
Yeah.
Yes, in some cases that would not be covered because they would ask you, why do you use that? And as soon as you
Okay.
said you use it for business, they would say it's not covered.
Okay.
When you have a business policy, you can take those items that are covered off premises, and they would be covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So how do insurance carriers help prevent costly loss events?
Yeah, so the bigger, well, even the small, you should be able to talk to a risk management person at the insurance carrier, and they'll talk to you about being safe. So they'll talk to you about what kind of locks do you have on this garage that you have your building in, how do you get your inventory shipped. So they'll help you to identify the areas that are potentially hazards or risks and how you can mitigate them. On a larger scale of the bigger companies, there's a risk manager who may even be on site with you, very often stopping in once a week or so to see, have you implemented these suggestions that they've made? Because obviously the insurance company wants you to be as safe and protected. They don't want to have to pay on those claims. So they'll work with you very closely to make sure that you are implementing the suggestions that they gave you.
So if you have a physical space, they'll actually come to it and assess the safe working environment and the safe space for your customers, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that at cost to you, or is that assessments are generally free, right?
Yes, they're part of
Okay.
the policy.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Right. So if you have a small policy where you have an endorsement on your personal, it may just be a phone call or two as to what kind of things you can do. If it's it's a true business policy, they actually will do a site visit with you. And
Okay.
the larger the business is, the more invested your risk manager will be.
So
And
let's use a quick example. Let's say a lawn care service company. You know, as an independent person, you have have maybe you're operating just out of your garage. Maybe you have a couple of employees who come by and get equipment, and they're using their own vehicles. Give me a sense of what that type of risk management process would look like then.
Well, so the risk management. Well, first of all, the policy would be a small business policy, and because he or she has employees, they would also have workers' compensation insurance. They would also have liability insurance because they're out there on people's property, and they could kick up a rock in that lawnmower and go through someone's window. And also, you want to make sure that the folks that you have are vetted. So because you're sending them out to represent your business onto other people's property, using this example. So a risk manager may come in and talk to the owner about how do you check someone's background? How do you list them on your policy? Do you want to have the coverage transferred over to their vehicle? Would it be better for you to buy vehicles to let them use rather than having them use it? Are they independent contractors, which is another issue that comes up frequently, especially lately as people do their more and more of their own small business within a small business.
Yes.
So they may be contractors versus employees. So they would go and look at that or have conversations to make sure it's locked, make sure it's properly insured.
On the same level here of a lawn care, so I had this 15-year-old kid coming through my neighborhood, trying to, hey, if you give me some cash, I'll mow your lawn for you. I got my own lawnmower, right? Are we stepping into a fine line here of should his parents look into getting insurance for him if he's offering that?
It's totally a fine line, especially now that we're having these blurred distinctions between making money.
Yeah.
But because he's not really a business, he's not filing taxes as a business. Any negligence on him would fall to the homeowner policy from his parents.
Okay.
Or where he lives.
All right. I was just curious.
But
about
he's
that.
not filing taxes. He's not
Right.
actually acting as a business. So he's just making some money off the side. So same thing for me if I decided to offer my neighbor who was on vacation walk their dog.
Yeah.
That would be one thing because it's very occasional and I'm not making money to file taxes. However,
Okay.
there's a lot of dog walking businesses.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Again, right? So they may not have a brick and mortar store, but one of the things their risk manager would tell them is that you need a really high liability limit.
Yeah.
Because you are responsible for a dog, and we all know what can happen there. So,
interesting.
Again,
People may not realize that when they think, I'm just going to open a dog walking service.
Yeah.
And it seems so simple, but as
Well,
you just
and
said,
you can
there
s-
might be some risks that you don't even inherently realize that the insurance company
And you can
brings
see
forward.
how things start simply.
Yes.
It just starts. I'm just walking my neighbor's dog,
Yes.
or I'm just gonna, I'm just a teenager gonna mow a few lawns, and then, oh well, wait a minute, I'm so busy, I should bring in a few lawnmowers and some of my friends, and how things just go from simple to
Yeah.
complex, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wait a minute, there's liability, there are concerns, there's
Yeah.
something I
Right.
need to be worried about.
With somebody with that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, as we've mentioned several times, Colorado's huge for that, right? I think that's a great lesson to learn, to take into account, is looking at insurance policies,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
So if you say you grow some fruit in your backyard on a tree, and they're wonderful, and you have this great big strawberry patch, and you want to bring it to the local farmer's market, and you're selling it, you need to be careful and ask those questions. I'm giving someone I'm selling someone a product. Where is my liability? What if this person gets sick? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
So something in that example, it may be one time only, which would be you wouldn't need it. Your negligence would fall on your homeowners. But if you do that every Saturday, your homeowner insurance is going to consider that a business.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's-
So many things I don't consider.
Let's transfer over to what we would consider a brick and mortar business, and something I think very common for people to open is a restaurant, a small restaurant. So what would be, again, the considerations that insurance carriers are looking at that to help prevent that costly loss?
Well, they would they always assess the risk, right? We always talk about risk. Risk to an insurer is what is the chance of something bad happening and you having to come and use this policy that we hope you never have to use. So they're going to make sure, they'll work with you to make sure that the building is safe, it's up to code, that, again, the employees have been vetted, and they'll just keep an active role within your business and oversight, more or less. They're not going to be just popping in all the time and looking over your shoulder, but they are there for you. So if you run into any problems or if you have questions, then you can certainly reach out to them. That's part of the benefits of a business policy.
It would seem like there's a lot of value in that front end risk management, risk assessment.
Yes.
To identify where the problems could happen. So the idea is mitigate, reduce the chances of those things happening in the first place.
Absolutely. So they would go in and they would look and say, well, you may want to put rugs on this floor where your servers are going in and out. You want to make sure that that swinging door is closed in one direction, or there's signs that say to be careful going in and out. So that's what they're looking for, the little things that they can do to make things better.
And the ovens and the fire safety and all of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that would involve several different types of policies, not just one.
Oh, yeah. So thinking about a restaurant, so you have general liability, which covers any injury that would happen to any patrons that come to your business, or any injury caused by the product that you're selling. So general liability is for that, a slip and fall, an injury, an illness from something that you sold. That's general liability. If you had a delivery service, either your employees using their personal auto would have that endorsement that we talked about earlier, or you could have a fleet of auto liability vehicles, maybe 2 or 3 vans that you might see with their branding on the side.
Pizza delivery or something.
Exactly.
Okay.
And those you would have on your auto policy, they would be on your business policy, they would be listed, and they would be specifically for the business. Also, employee liability, and that's really important when you have a lot of employees, especially if you have a lot of turnover, because that's to protect you from any allegations of wrongdoing as an employer. So discrimination, charges like that, the policy will have a defense for you. They'll offer a defense. Excuse me. And then professional liability is something that if you are expected to be at a certain level, you're a professional, then you either omit or make an error, then that is available to defend and pay the claim if indeed you are negligent.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah.
A professional liability?
Yeah.
The latest one I have recently was an agent, actually. We're talking about insurance, so let's talk about that, right? So an agent who is selling policies for a living, they have to be insured as well, right? So you walk we're talking about having business owners reach out to their agents to have a discussion about what kind of insurance do I need. In this particular instance, the customer received improper advice. So they didn't get the insurance that they needed. The business owner suffered a loss, and the claim was denied. And it was denied because she didn't have the right coverage. So she turned to the agent, and the agent, as a professional, as a licensed professional in the state of Colorado, has liability insurance. And that liability insurance then paid the claim, paid the difference that she should have received. So even within insurance, there is liability insurance needed, and for the professional.
So not to get too deep on this one, but I am curious, how is that proven?
Yeah.
We had emails between the consumer and the agent, so it's really good to keep your records of your phone conversations, any dealings that you may have, and she went in there, she got a policy. He did not write the correct coverages that she needed, and she said her position, and we believe that, and we supported that she relied on this professional to direct her, to guide her through this very complicated process. So,
is that
fascinating?
Is that what I've heard called errors and omissions insurance, or so I think a lot of professionals are familiar with that. So a lot of them have to have that. That's real estate agents and insurance brokers. And it's kind of, and like doctors would have malpractice insurance and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I'm getting it. Yeah,
So
the malpractice that's very helpful.
You haven't met or someone accuses you of not meeting your professional duty, you have this insurance to help provide
exactly
that defense.
Insurance for your insurance. I love it.
Yeah. It was interesting to bring that example in because it was so recent. And so this woman ended up receiving over $45,000 for a loss that initially she was going to receive nothing because of the agent's error. So the errors and omissions, the malpractice, insurance carrier stepped in and became the insurance carrier for her.
So this is a great example in which this is one of the reasons the Colorado Division of Insurance exists.
Yes.
Is to be able to look at these types of complaints by, it sounds like the business owner.
Yes.
And to be able to, offer assistance in whatever manner. This is the one thing that we hear about all the time with the Division of Insurance is that people don't realize the Division of Insurance is there until they need the Division of Insurance. And then once they realize it, they think, I don't know what I could have done without going to the Division of Insurance. And so, I think if anything, one of the things that we do want to stress all the time is that if you ever have a question as a business owner or even just as
an individual,
never hesitate to call the Division of Insurance. That's what they're set up to do, to answer the smallest question to some of the, larger ones like, I think I got bad advice on my insurance policies and I've had a loss and now it won't be covered. That's a big deal.
I stress that all the time, that it doesn't have to be a formal complaint. It can be a simple question. What does this mean? I got something from my insurance company and I'm not clear what this is, or my insurance agent said this, or was suggesting this sort of thing. And I can think for business owners, they may have dealt with things as an individual, their homeowners, their auto, but now they're stepping into this world of business insurance, and now my agent says I need XYZ type of insurance. What is it? That's something that they can definitely call your team and ask and say, what does this mean?
Absolutely. We have our phone lines are open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and we take calls. I think our average is answered within less than 60 seconds, so less than a minute. I know. We're very proud of that.
You should be for a government entity.
Absolutely. We blow people away. And then we have the Welcome Center, which DORA introduced, so all of our agencies are represented down there. So, again, 8 to 5, people can come in. This one example I gave, we are tenacious. We always tell folks we will fight for $1 if we could. The example that I gave you about the woman who ended up going through malpractice, first there was a complaint against the insurance carrier who denied, and then through investigation we ended up going to the agent. So that probably took 4 months, but it was 4 months of dedication, working together with the consumer, following the leads, following the details that came out of the investigation to get her the funds that she was owed.
And you got them. That was a win.
Yes.
That was the total win for everyone.
That goes back to the $10 million that
except
we've
for the
recovered
agent,
consumers.
but yes.
Yes,
But the agent was covered.
Yes, exactly. That's
so I guess it wasn't right. So let's continue with that analogy really quickly and think. Okay, don't want to assume too much, but let's say she suffered a loss in which then her business was interrupted. There is something called business interruption insurance.
Yes,
So
there is.
Can you explain that?
So business interruption is if it's a covered loss. So if there's something that a fire is a covered loss, water loss, something that happens within your building, within your business, that's either eliminates your inventory so you can't do any more work, you can't get into the building so you can't service your customers, the insurance will actually step in and pay you what you would have made. So be prepared to provide records from last year at this time. They're always looking for that time period. Are you busier in the summer and the winter? So you give them that time period, and they will actually pay you what you have lost, and to keep your business afloat, help you get your inventory back up, also pay what you would have made as a profit during that time. So business interruption insurance is very important. It keeps the business afloat.
So I think we were talking earlier, an example, again, coming back to the restaurant thing that you've recently seen. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so
we actually are going to talk about that when we come back from the break. No worries, but I am excited to hear the answers. So stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. In the meantime, check out cobrt.com/radio-podcast for this and more. Look up Rebecca Laurie or DORA Colorado for other episodes. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page. We'll be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. Stay with us. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are having our monthly visit here with Rebecca Laurie from DORA, Colorado. That's the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And we also have Vincent Plymell with the Division of Insurance,
Correct.
and Tracy Garceau, who is an insurance analyst Analyst. So, excuse me, I would like to read and talk. Also with the Department of Insurance at Colorado. And you know what, Vincent, I forgot to ask you before we went to break, how do we get a hold of you guys?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
We have basically phone number and email is the best way to reach our folks and the folks who can answer all questions about insurance and what you need to do and what it all means. In the Denver metro area, that's 303-894-7490. If you're outside of the Denver metro area, we have an 800 number. That's 800-930-375. Or if you want to just get in touch with us by email, it's DORA, DORA _insurance @state.co.us. And I think as Tracy was saying, it's really important to call.
Yeah, again, our lines are open 8 to 5, and we are there to assist. And again, too often, folks call a little too late, or they've suffered through months and months of hardship trying to overcome some challenges with their carrier, whether it be the premium side, the policy side, or a claim. And when they call us, they're just surprised and shocked that we're there to help, and we truly are. And again, it doesn't have to be a formal complaint. It could be a phone call. And we take pride in educating Colorado consumers. So we will often send them a statute or a regulation and tell them how to use it. So we want to empower Colorado consumers. We would never shy away from taking a complaint, which we have to have a formal complaint to open an investigation. But we do like to also empower, because then they'll tell someone else and they'll tell someone else, and what's better than that to be able to self-advocate.
And it's often easier to address a problem the earlier.
The earlier, the better.
The better, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the minute that I'm thinking about opening my own business, I should probably give you guys a call, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and if you're looking for an agent, so we can look to make sure that the agent is licensed. So we want to make sure that you have a reputable agent, then you can give us a call. Absolutely.
Yeah. We don't recommend agents, but,
No.
but like I said, you can see if they're licensed and see if they've had any actions taken against them, any disciplinary actions. So.
Yeah.
And that's true of all of the licensees that DORA does, right, Rebecca?
That's one of the great resources of the department, for sure. For sure. But let's pop back into the discussion.
Yeah.
We were discussing business interruption insurance, which I had never heard of before.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that I think a lot of business owners are going to be thinking about, well, okay, I need to insure, the property. If some fire happens, something bad happens, I want to insure against, somebody tripping and falling in the place. I have the liability and workers' comp if I have employees, that sort of thing. But business interruption is something I think a lot of people don't think about. And I think it's important if you can talk a bit about it, Tracy, and also that example we were talking about with a restaurant earlier. But just what is it and why it's important and why should people think about it?
Yeah, so this is their livelihood, and you go to your work one day and the building is burned to the ground. What do? I mean, you have the employees to take care of, but you also have your livelihood. You have to restock your inventory, and you have to make a profit to stay while you're waiting for this building to go back up, or you find another location. Business interruption helps you with all of that. It'll pay your costs, that the profits that you would have made once you prove that you made those profits in the past. Also, they can even help you try to find another location to work out of during the time that the building is being rebuilt. So they'll help you with that, help you rebuild your inventory. So it's something to keep you from going out of business. Just think about it. It could be devastating one day, just going and you have nothing. That's when you turn to your insurance carrier and say, what can you help me ride through this interruption? That's really what it is, the interruption, the business interruption.
So it could be a smaller, it doesn't necessarily, the building doesn't have to burn to the ground.
No.
I'm thinking of, there was a business not too far from where I live where a car had driven into the window, the front window. So while the glass gets replaced and while it gets structurally sound, they can't do business.
Right. I don't mean to be catastrophic, but as an insurance person, I always tend to go to what could be the worst.
Burning down.
Absolutely. So yes, if you go and there is a water break or somebody drives through the front window, and you're out. So it could be as a matter of a week to 10 days, up to a couple of years, depending upon the amount of work that needs to be done to get you back in business. So the example we were talking about before, there's this new restaurant opened near my home. Had a really great opening, and it's been open for about 1.5 years, and it's always full. It's really active, and doing really well. Again, one of these small businesses that started, a small restaurant. And then there's all this road work that's going on. And there's a little tiny sign that says, that the business are still open, but who wants to drive their car down there? So you would think that that's business interruption, but that, as much as I want to say that that would be covered, that would be something you would have to call and talk to your carrier about, your insurance carrier. Do they consider that a business interruption? So that everything, just like you pick and choose the coverages and the protections that will suit your business, there's also other caveats within the policy that have to be addressed and have to be adhered to get that.
Because there may not be necessarily a covered loss that
Right.
could trigger that.
Right.
Does business interruption insurance also apply to the home-based business? Can it apply?
Sure, absolutely. If you have equipment that you need or your inventory, so again, as they covered, someone comes in, I'll keep it small. Someone steals something, it doesn't burn down. Until you can get that inventory back up, yes, absolutely. So again, and these are if you choose it. So that's why it's great to have.
It's not automatic. It's an additional
Right.
policy.
I
or
mean,
endorsement.
some may have it included, but you want to make sure it does. And because these products that companies offer, they can be very creative. Some can be very only a few covered situations, where others can be very broad-based. So you need to make sure that you're getting what you need, but only what you need too. So you don't want to overpay. You don't want to insure a risk that you will never that will never happen. That's why it's really important to make sure you're working with a reputable licensed agent.
Yes, agreed. I think all of us, who own a home have been through the home insurance discussion with an agent or, and as the owner, you are really forced to make a lot of projections that you couldn't even potentially imagine.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it is their choice. So, as I think, following what Vince often always says, the cheapest policy isn't necessarily, always the way to go if you can manage that.
Yeah.
Because just what you said, there may have been an option, say, under business interruption insurance that would have allowed for construction loss.
Right.
But perhaps you didn't choose that, and therefore, unfortunately, that means that you're not covered.
Yeah, and the way businesses grow, you should, and this is with any kind of insurance, continually check it. Don't just buy it and let it renew again and again. Your business
The
may
set
be
it and
growing.
forget it mentality. Yeah.
Absolutely. And companies expect you to do that because they send you a renewal package that they expect that you are going to read. So just make sure that you keep on top of it and don't just let it set it and forget it.
And a business, it absolutely is going to change from year to year.
Yes.
I mean, you shouldn't, but you kind of get away with that with your home and your auto a little bit. But a business, you're hoping it grows, but it might. Whatever. You're going to take on more employees, more risk, more inventory, more business, and so it is worth evaluating.
Right. So maybe you start, with a restaurant, just a brick and mortar, but now you're doing deliveries and you have vehicles or you have employees that are driving. Absolutely.
Right.
So you should be checking.
Yeah, and on that, along those same lines, with businesses that start out, as a startup, right, you're trying to scrimp and save money as much as you can everywhere you can. So what are some repercussions here for small businesses that try to forgo a little bit of insurance up front?
So just think about, I have a small business out of my home and I'm using my car to deliver this product that I'm starting to get off the ground, and I get into an auto accident and I call my auto insurer. One of the questions they ask is, what were you doing? You say, I was delivering my packages. And there is an exclusion, meaning they're going to exclude this coverage when you're using your vehicle, your personal vehicle, for business. So now here you are, you've lost the product that you had in the car. You may have lost the customer too as well, but you also have a damaged vehicle that the insurance company is not going to pay for because it's business use. You may have struck someone, and maybe your fault, and you may have struck another vehicle. The insurance company wouldn't pay for that. So by not exploring and really understanding the risks that you're facing when you start a small business, you could actually put yourself in some really serious financial harm by being basically because you're uninsured, and we don't want anyone on the road uninsured.
Yeah.
So you may have that personal auto policy that you've always had, and just not realize that it's not covering you, it's not protecting you because you're not just a personal auto anymore. You are a business-related auto.
So you may have saved a little money on the front end by not getting it,
Right.
but now you've dug yourself a bigger hole, or you know you're having to start from zero again. Now, you know, I don't have the card to deliver, and I don't have the product, I don't have the customers. And
Right.
Is there ever an example of being over-insured?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question.
It's definitely you could definitely be overinsured on any kind of insurance policy, and that's just throwing money out the window.
Right.
So I think in a business policy, actually, it's more challenging to be overinsured, because business policies, including liability and all of the other coverages that we're talking about, and workers' compensation, they're audited. So your premium is based on your revenue and or the number of employees that you have. So you buy a policy, and then within a year or so, the company's going to audit you to make sure that the records that they have are accurate. And usually, we don't hear from people who are overinsured. It's usually the underinsured, because they're going to get a really big premium bill, because that's part of it. So if you say, inadvertently or intentionally, however, you say, I have 4 employees, and I only make $60,000 a year, and then they do an audit and find out you have 14 employees and you make $160,000 a year, yeah, they're going to come back and give you a big premium bill on that. So we see that underinsured much more than we see the overinsured. I think an overinsured, you would get a refund.
Okay, you do. Okay, so there is some
Mechanism, yeah.
mechanism
Yes.
here too. Because if
Of
I've
the
been
valuation
paying
of
for
that,
hurricane
okay.
insurance in Colorado for years, I should, maybe get a little money back there.
Not on your personal auto, they'll never do
Well,
that.
of course.
But just businesses, yes. If they audit you, they should be giving you, they audit so that they can have accuracy.
Right.
And again, we hear from the folks who that accuracy ends up in a bill, but it could end up in a credit as well.
Okay.
So, so I think you bring up something there. Is there, with the cost of insurance, what are these various types of business insurance? What do they base the cost of the premium on? What are the variables? Because the question I'd love to ask is, like, how much does this all cost? But I know the classic answer is it depends.
It totally depends. It does depend. So again, starting from the very beginning, what if you had that small business we talked about many times about in the garage or in your home? You may just need an endorsement on your personal policy, right? So you add something to your homeowner policy, and then you add something to your auto policy, and you're fine. So maybe, again, they would look at the risk to see how often you were driving for the business and what kind of product you were building in the house. So be a little bit different if you were just sewing clothes versus you were building rockets. Of course, it's going to be a big
Right,
difference
right.
in the risk. Same thing for businesses as they grow. So they're going to base it. Your premium is based on the net value of the business and the risk. So again, if you're parachuting, if you're running an airplane and teaching people how to jump out of that plane, it's going to be a lot different than if you're a watchmaker.
Sure. Sure.
And varied with the number of employees you have, and the amount of business that you do.
Yes.
And what your physical location.
Which I think
is
brings
like.
us to the topic of liability, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When we're talking about insurance for a
Skydiving.
skydiver business.
Yes. So liability is huge. So we all know that, we've heard the slip and falls a lot. Companies are consistently, they should be looking for that to make sure that these things don't happen on their premises. And that's why a risk manager we talked about earlier, risk advisor from a company will often come in to check that. And one thing, and this is across the board for all insurance, the more claims you have, the higher your premium is probably going to be, because that history of claims follows you. No matter if you change companies, there's a central database. Yes, believe it or not, there's a central database for all of your insurance.
So you can never shed your claims.
You can't. They drop off after a while, but for business, it's not as it's more important because it does follow you, and you could end up having a much higher premium. But remember, with those risk managers are coming in, workers' compensation, also the Department of Labor will actually assign someone to come in and work with you, and you can earn points. That way you could earn a certificate that will lower your workers' compensation premium. So I was speaking with a small business owner. He had someone come in and give him a $10 bill, and came in and then said, no, I really only, it was a gas station, a small gas station. gave the person came and gave him a 5, and he gave the customer 10 back. And then the customer came back in and said, I want my $5 change, if you could follow that. So the owner was like, no, I don't owe you any money. So it was, the 5 first, then the 10, then the 5. And the customer started just throwing things around the store and started to fight with someone that was coming in. So just think of all of the claims that came out of that. So the store owner actually needed a defense. He wasn't negligent. You have to be negligent in order for a liability claim to be paid. But he did need a defense for all of these claims that were coming in against him. So it's so important. You may not be negligent. You may not have to pay that liability claim, but you may have to, if you don't have the right insurance, you may end up having a lot of legal fees. So it's very important.
Is liability insurance mandatory for businesses?
There are some licensed professions that require that, yes. And Colorado does require liability insurance.
Sure, like medical.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other professions typically?
Everything from, I believe, and this is more for one of our other departments within our other divisions, Department of Professions and Occupations will often set those, but I believe that from manicurists all the way up to doctors have to have liability insurance. That malpractice, people do, I said it myself, medical, but it's really malpractice on almost any profession that's licensed.
So you had mentioned some of the types of liability insurance. What are other types of liability insurance?
For our business?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's employee liability. I think I mentioned that earlier. So if an employee of yours makes an allegation that you had discriminatory hiring practices or they were unfairly dismissed, that's a coverage that you can purchase. Again, it's like a smorgasbord, if I had said that right. You say it.
Smorgasbord.
There you go. You pick and choose. So again, with the high turnover restaurants or places where there's a lot of part-time people, they're exposed to that, and they may want to get that so that they can have lawyers defend them if those claims ever come through. The liability for the product that you sell or your premises is also very important for the customers to protect that yourself against claims from them as well.
What kind of insurance is it for, like, if you have employees that are delivering or interacting with your customers and they do something wrong? Mm-hmm. Either they're bad actors or something that they do just by accident causes
like damage something.
Yeah, damages to a homeowner when they're delivering the product or moving furniture or whatever.
Absolutely. So they are part of your business. So it fall under your liability. So if they're delivering something and they cause some damage for some way, then it is the business that's responsible, and that falls under the liability. Okay. Do you remember we were talking about the lawnmower, right? So, or the dog walker, actually. You have to go in the home to get the dog out of the home. Mm-hmm. So think about that. Not only are you exposed to claims against yourself for walking the dog outside in public that you may be bitten, but the dog owner may say that you stole something from them or you caused some damage to their home. So it's to protect, liability protects you against all kinds of allegations of negligence. Right. Some valid, some not.
There's a lot of nonprofits that are essentially small businesses. Mm-hmm. Is there any difference in terms of insurance coverage for a nonprofit that's out doing community work, say, or putting together gardens, whatever it might be, but it's just really one or two people operating out of a small space or even a home? A small nonprofit?
I would think so, because anytime you're dealing with the public, anytime that there's a chance that someone could point a finger to you and say that you have done something negligent that harmed them, no matter what it is. So I can see a nonprofit going to a home, say gardening, and helping you garden, and then you left a trowel on the sidewalk and they tripped and fell. So I believe that would have to be covered that should be covered as well. That may be a decision that they have to make, but I would encourage them strongly to make sure that they do have the proper protection.
In that same vein, with nonprofits, what about these are volunteers often mm-hmm. working for them. Can they be covered by the liability insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as long as they're doing the work for the nonprofit at the time.
Mm-hmm. When we keep talking about small here, do we have an exact definition of what small business is?
There may be. I'm not familiar with that, but there
Okay.
could be. I believe, like on the health side, health insurance has definitions of what a small business
Okay.
versus
Yeah.
a larger business due to the health insurance requirements. So I think there's a legal definition out there somewhere.
Okay.
Do you-
Right. With health insurance, if you're providing health insurance to your employees, the cutoff is the 100 employees.
Okay.
So small businesses, under 100 employees, and large is above that. But I'm thinking if you're buying this business insurance and your liability and your workers' comp and your business interruption, that's something that you're going to probably talk about with your agent.
Oh.
Because I mean,
Right.
that it kind of doesn't it doesn't the distinction of a legal definition of small business versus large business doesn't matter so much as here's how many employees you have and here's the square footage of your property and
Right.
here's the amount of you've done in sales and that sort of thing are the tipping points for different levels of premium, I would think.
Right, exactly. So we're talking
Yeah.
about business operations policies,
Right.
and that would apply to the one single entrepreneur all the way up to a corporation.
Okay.
Just different levels, picking what what parts of the product that you need.
And do you guys have a booth at Denver Startup Week at all? Because this is wonderful information for our startups.
That's a loaded question.
That is,
Alex.
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
The answer is yes. No, actually, we don't.
Well, if I may, I think Rebecca said early is that so many folks don't know we're here.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to people who feel so relieved when they believe they have an advocate, or at least someone will help them through this very complicated process. And we are always looking for ways to go out and meet the communities. So
Yes.
any chance we get to go out to groups to talk. Recently I've done some renters presentations. I'm doing a couple more next week. We did one recently.
Yeah, you were talking to a group of the Denver neighborhood groups.
Yes.
Consortium of the different
Yes.
neighborhood
Yeah.
groups.
The
and-
INC
Yeah, we
organization
talked to
at
them,
Denver.
and
yeah.
that ended up being
Yeah.
very well. They were like, "Oh wow, the Division of Insurance can do this and
We-
answer these questions."
Yeah.
And how much does it cost?
Well, while I've got you here, one more time, give me that number,
Absolutely.
please, and
You
that
wanna
email
contact
address.
us.
Yeah.
In the Denver area, 303-894-7490. Outside of the Denver area, 800-930-3745. Or you want to contact us by email, DORA, DORA _insurance @state.co.us.
And just to follow up, Tracy, really appreciate your time and your expertise here today. Talking about outreach, outreach is a really important thing that we do. As Tracy mentioned, not only face-to-face outreach, but DORA actually has online chat.
Yeah.
So we have the Welcome Center, but we also have online chat. So when people do have these types of questions, certainly they can just go online and submit their question, and it'll be fielded to the correct area within the department. So there are a lot of ways to get questions answered,
Yeah.
and I think one of the keys is allowing and letting people know that we're here.
I like that, and I like the chat because I don't know about you, but I'm a texter, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
the chat might be a little bit easier for me. But I appreciate that. It has been wonderful having you guys on. I've learned a lot today.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yes, and we will see you next month.
Yes, sounds
Yes.
great.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Alex.
much for joining us on Connect and Collaborate. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. And check out this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. And check out the Division of Insurance
Yeah.
when you have some time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.